Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Abby Wellner, and we're joined now by Clemens Sedmak, visiting professor of Catholic Social Tradition and Community Engagement at Notre Dame's Center for Social Concerns and the Keough School of Global Affairs. Professor Sedmak, welcome to Notre Dame. Thank you so much for joining us for Notre Dame Day. And I think we'll just start with the most obvious question. Can you tell us a little bit about how you perceive and explain the words Catholic social tradition?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Catholic social tradition is a word we use at the Center for Social Concerns. Other places use Catholic social teaching. Catholic social teaching is a little narrower. It basically means the texts written by popes about social issues ever since 1891. And Catholic social tradition is much broader. It basically refers to the social dimension of our faith, which has been part of our religion since the beginning. If you think of the famous Matthew 25, what you have done to the least of my brothers and sisters, and all the viewers will know that, you have done unto me. That's the social dimension of our faith. And another example, maybe in the year 368, there was a famine. People starved, nobody cared, and the Christian bishops at that place in Cappadocia said, look, this is your problem. Your brothers and sisters are starving, so you have to do something about it. And that's the social dimension of our faith. And I think it's not optional. It's part of what we believe as Christians. And Pope Francis once famously said that an authentic faith, which is never completely personal and never comfortable, always involves this deep desire to change the world. And this deep desire to change the world is, I think, what we call the Catholic social tradition.
And I understand that Pope Francis has also warned that there is a risk in reducing Catholic social teaching to abstract principles. What exactly does he mean by that?
Yeah, that's a quotation from Evangelii Gaudium 182, for those who are interested. And Pope Francis is obviously the hands-on, concrete person who would like to see the world changed for the better. And Catholic social teaching, as it is sometimes presented, has those lofty principles. Subsidiarity, which I cannot even pronounce, solidarity, common good, option for the poor, care for creation. And people would say, what is subsidiarity? It's an abstract principle. And when you look at some of the introductions to Catholic social teaching, including bishops' conferences, websites, they will give you the list of principles. And that's abstract and slightly tedious, if not to say boring. And so you need to break that down to the ground and say, well, subsidiarity means you try to encourage people to have initiatives, to do what they can. Solidarity means you care about other people. It's not the case that some lives matter more than others. And Pope Francis is deeply concerned about this Church of the Poor that cares about human persons, and Catholic social tradition should make this kind of difference.
And you are part of the Center for Social Concerns here at Notre Dame. Can you tell us a little bit about what the center is actively doing, what students are actively doing to bring Catholic social teaching into the community?
Yes. What would we mean to do passively doing something? So anyway, the center is actively doing a lot of things, especially providing students with transformative experiences. So students have the opportunity to go for 8 weeks in the summer, nationally or internationally, to do service and to learn by doing that. We have seminars, one-week seminars, where students have immersion experiences. I just took a group of students to Austria to look into the situation of refugees in the light of Catholic social tradition. And if you spend time on the ground with people and you get your hands dirty and you have your feet on the ground, this makes all the difference. So that's one of the things the center does. A second big thing the center does is working with community partners, because community partners have problems, they face challenges, and academic people are sometimes brilliant, but wouldn't start to work on the right kinds of problems. So the center is also a matchmaker, trying to bring community partners with their problems and questions together with academics who with their research solve problems and make the world a better place. So it's basically a lab to transform the world, as I see the center with wonderful people and one of the on-the-ground experiences of Notre Dame.
And you mentioned the word lab, and I think most of us think of beakers and science and those kinds of things whenever we hear of a lab, but you have a Catholic social teaching lab here at Notre Dame, am I correct?
I call it a Catholic social tradition research lab, and the idea is to experiment with Catholic social tradition on the ground. What difference does it make to implement Catholic social tradition? I give you two examples. In November, here on campus, a group of 19 students experimented with one aspect of their lifestyle in the light of Laudato Si, the famous encyclical by Pope Francis from 2015. They experimented with habits, they experimented with the experience of nature. So one little habit they had in mind for 1 month, they wrote a journal, they they were consistent and persistent, and that's one way of experimenting with what does it mean to realize CST on the ground. Another example, maybe we are just working on a reform of the Curia of the Archdiocese of Salzburg in Austria. We have 24 interviews with stakeholders, and they tell us all kinds of interesting secrets. And in the light of that, we will come up with a suggestion how to reform the Curia in the light of the principles of Catholic social tradition. So that's what the CST lab is about.
All right, Professor Sedmak, thank you so much for joining us and
Thank
for
you.
the important work that you are doing.